Hey class, Dr. Danju here again. Welcome. Today we're covering chapters 8, interval estimations. What we're going to be doing is finding the interval estimations, the boundaries that guide us from what is good compared to what is not good. All right. These boundaries, these estimations are probability values. And from these probability values, we can find what is the lower boundary limits, what is the upper boundary limits, what are the limits that we're good with, and what are the limits that we're not good with in life, and don't forget, stats is life. We want to have boundaries. We want to know what is good compared to what is bad. Because if we have boundaries, then we can say, hey, this is what we need to do to get within the standards that we're asking. Or this stuff is good. We're within the standards. Or man, this is not good. This is what we need to do to improve to get in within the boundaries. Please keep in mind, for the most part, when we're dealing with interval estimations, from a business statistics perspective, the interval estimation is that we're looking at is at 95%. All right. So for the most part, your interval estimations is at 95%. So what I want to do is a quick review. Then we're going to jump into our lecture, and then we're going to knock out our homework assignment. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So what I'm going to do is share my screen with you all. And once again, my head is going to be in a swivel. Bear with me, please. All right. So let's do a quick review of chapters 5. All right. Don't forget, if we have our regular formulas, how do we calculate it in Excel? The sum product. First, calculate the mean, then the square deviation from the mean, the variance, and then your standard deviation. For binomial distribution, find the easy, most effective way of doing business by know that distribution function within Excel, as opposed to this. Yee! All right. Poisson distribution. Your function of X would look like this, the exact precise number. All right. But we're going to be used Poisson distribution. Hypergeometric is a similar concept. All right. That was chapters 5. Chapter 6, we dealt with continuous normal distribution. Can we ultimately find the probabilities between 2 points, x1 and x2? Yes, we can find it uniformly by doing the range of the small box divided by the range of the bigger box. We can do it normally by doing x to z to probability. We can use the normal.s, that distribution function from z to probability, or we can use the normal distribution function going from your x to your probability. If you wanted to inverse it, all you had to use was the inverse function. All right. But please remember, if you want to go from a point to the left, you use the regular function, normal distribution as an example. If you're going in between, you must do the larger number first minus the smaller number. If you're going to the right, it is 1 minus. All right, the same concept we use for exponential. All right, that was chapter 6. Chapter 7, we kept it simple. Find the standard error, find your probabilities. Whether you're dealing with x values, whether you're dealing with proportions, find your standard error, find your probability. All right, so today, what we're talking about is interval estimations. Can we find the boundaries that are good? So, in your mind's eye, I want to ask you this question. You see this young lady falling back into this young man's arms, right? Let's replace that young lady with me. I'm going to fall back into your arms. In your mind's eye, I want you to ask and answer yourself this question. Just answer this question. What percentage would you give yourself to catch me? If I were to fall back, and I'm a pretty big dude, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be like, lay back, all right? What percentage would you give yourself to catch me? Now, ask yourself this question on top of that. At that percentage, do you think I should fall backwards? Some of y'all like 100%, maybe I'll fall backwards, all right? But if you're like at 10%, for why? If you were anything less than 95%, why would I fall backwards? Look, I ain't trying to injure me, all right? But ultimately, can we find the lower limits, the upper limits between this boundary that should be good? All right. If this guy moves over to the left or the right, she's falling flat on her back. For why? All right. We got to make sure that everything is within the boundaries that we set. All right. Good. So, from my Christian worldview perspective, how do we know if things are within the boundaries that God set? All right. So, my story today is coming from the story of King David. Now, just imagine the king before King David was King Saul. Saul initially was within God's standards. He was doing things that God was saying. And then all of a sudden, he started rebelling. He started doing the things that he wanted to do. He wasn't following the leadings of God. So he became a person or a king that came outside of God's boundaries. And God says to the prophet, look, I need a new king. I need someone that is going to fall within my boundaries. All right. And this is where the story of David comes. Does God care about interval estimations? And if he does, why shouldn't we? All right. So these characters, all right, in my story today, all right, we're going to have David. This guy's going to represent David. These are David's brothers. All right. How does God judge the human heart? All right. How do we know if we are within God's standards or not? Does God reject us because we're outside of his standards, or does God accept us because we're within his standards? All right. So here is my story, and it's coming from 1 Samuel 16, 7. All right. Samuel went to Jesse. God was like, I need a new king. Go to Jesse's house. There you will find a new king. One of his sons is going to be the new king. So Samuel went to Jesse's house and met the first brother and the eldest. And he was like, man, surely this guy is the king. He is tall, dark, and handsome. I'm just making that up, right? All right, I don't know if that's true or not, but he went and he saw this guy and is like, yes, this must be the one. And this is God's response to Samuel's reaction to seeing the first brother. God says to Samuel, but the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. Boop, 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 boop. The consistency of the matter. You know, David was consistent. You know, David wrote the 93rd Psalm. He said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still water. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. That prepare. You know, David, man. David was a man after God's own heart. He was within the boundaries. Now, please get this. David was not a perfect man. What David found out is whenever he found himself like outside the alignment of God, he was willing to ask for repentance and get back within the boundaries that God had set. Today, we're going to check to see are things within our interval estimation or not, or are they outside of our interval estimations? So that is the plan for today. Please join me as we get into our lesson for today. All right, but for a personal example, here's my wife. She was able to graduate from GCU with her master's. She is now a psychologist. All right. But GCU had to prove that she was within the boundaries in order for her to graduate. You guys are going through these classes in hopes of being able to graduate. You must fulfill the requirements. You must stay within the required set of requirements that GCU have set. Stay within the requirements and graduate. All right. So here she is. Girl, do your thing. I'll do your thing. All right. The cool part about all of this is that while she was graduating at GCU, all right, with her master's, was able to hand her her certificate. That was priceless. I was able to stay within the borders to get my doctorate. She then was able to get her master's, and hopefully she can go on from there. But ultimately, are you within the borders that are required of you? All right, these are our little kiddos. Today, we're going to show you how to make these calculations. All right, we're going to show you how to calculate the means. All right, the actual, if you know your standard deviation or if you don't know your standard deviation, we're going to show you how to calculate sample size, and we're going to show you how to do it proportionately as well. So let's get into it. Point estimate. Remember, point estimate is your sample estimate. All right, your sample data. Your point estimate is like your mean or your standard deviation or your variance. That is your point estimate. But the interval, the width of the confidence interval, is the actual lower limits and the upper limits of your confidence level. It is the borders that separate what is good from what is not good. All right, good. How do we calculate it? Here is a simple formula. You will take your average minus your margin of error to find the lower limits. To find the upper limits, your average plus the margin of error, and that will be your upper limits. All right, this is your confidence interval or your interval estimate. All right, so here are some more examples. How do we do it in Excel? All right, we'll be using for your margin of error the confidence.norm function. All right, so this is what it will look like. You'll get your average plus this confidence.norm or confidence.t, and we'll be able to calculate your margin of error, or you'll be able to calculate the lower limits and the upper limits of your data. All right. So what is the difference? You guys are going to see that. Great, great. All right. Here's a good example. All right. Imagine a couple or couples wanted to find out if they will have a successful marriage or not. In your mind's eye, just imagine that the population's average kisses per year, in order to have a successful marriage, you need 372 kisses per year. All right. Now, the lower limit is 366. The upper limit is 378. All right. The average is in between. Yeah, yeah. So in order to have a successful marriage, you must be within this border. All right. Your lower limit and your upper limit must in some way hit the population's lower limit and upper limit. So just imagine, this is all hypothetical, so you can kind of get the vision of what's going on right here. Just imagine we had a sample of couples. This first sample of couples, their average was 362. Their lower limit was 356 kisses per year. Their upper limit was 368 kisses per year, a little bit more than 366. So you would say to these couples, look, you guys are good. You guys are within the interval estimate of a couple or a successful couple. All right. But you can see that they're on the back end or on the lower end of success. So you could say to these couples, looky, looky, even though you guys may be successful, y'all need to kiss a little bit more. All right. So that way you can be within the standards set by the population. Yeah, yeah. We want to make sure that things are within the borders. All right. So here's my second set of couples. I did the survey again. How are you guys kissing per year? All right. These guys are at 369. a little bit more than that. All right. And 375. All right. Within that. All right. So you'll be like, yeah, y'all are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Keep kissing. Yeah, yeah. But here's something that you may see. All right. Did a third set of couples, and their lower limit is 360. Their upper limit is 365. They're outside the borders. So you will say, looky, you guys will not have a successful marriage. Then you can say to them, because you have borders, because you have boundaries, because you have standards, you can now say to them, looky, all y'all need to do is kiss one more time in that year, and you will have a successful marriage. Once you have borders, y'all, you can tell how close or how far away you are from the standards. Always have boundaries. When you guys are in relationships, always have boundaries. If someone is outside of those boundaries, you can easily tell them to self-correct. But if you never set boundaries within your relationships, man, then they can do whatever they want and, like you will be unsatisfied. So please, young ladies, young men, please make sure that you have borders, you have boundaries when you go through life. Stats is life. So ultimately, what we're checking to see is, are you within the standards or not? Can we calculate the lower limits? Can we calculate the upper limits? All right. So here are some more examples. Great, 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 great. All right, let's get into our actual calculations. All right, so ultimately, we're going to be using a sample to understand the population parameter. All right, so we're going to be starting from the actual probability values. All right, so these are your confidence intervals. And don't forget, for the most part, we're going to be dealing with business statistics at a 95% confidence level. All right. We're going to leave that 5% of grace. Yeah, yeah. But if you have a confidence interval of 95%, please understand that we changed that to a decimal value of 0.595. Yeah, yeah. And the Z value is already set. You don't need to even calculate it. Every time we're dealing with a 95% confidence interval, the Z value is 1.96. All right. In some cases, you're going to see 90%. In some cases, you're going to see 99%. All right. So these are the three that are most common within business statistics, and their Z values are already set. All right. Here's a note to self. The alpha value is basically what remains from that confidence interval. So if I were to deal with 95% confidence, 5% remains. Yeah, yeah, 0.05 if I were to do it as a decimal value. The alpha values are the zones that you're not confident in. Yeah, yeah. So in your mind's eye, your confidence intervals are the zones that you're confident in, and the alpha values are the zones that you're not confident in. Yeah? All right. So let me kind of show you a visual of this. And once again, I'll be doing the most on this. So here's my visual. I pull it out, zooming in. All right. So here is 95%. Everything shaded is your 95% confidence interval. Your alpha value are your outer tips. All right. So because you have two of them, you're going to split them in half, 0.025 on one side and 0.025 on the other side. Their Z values are already set. All right. 1.96 negative for the lower limits, 1.96 positive for the upper limits. All right. So now that you got that concept, can we calculate your proportion? All right. Your lower limit proportion, if you know your population standard deviation, or your upper limits. This is the actual formula. Whoever came up with this is brilliant. Some of you guys are looking at this like, what does that mean? All right. What they're saying is they're actually putting two formulas in one formula. What they did was X bar is your average. You see plus or minus, this is where the two formulas come into place. The plus represents the upper limit. The minus represents the lower limit. All right. And then you'll do this equation to get the borders for the lower limit and the upper limits. All right. But what we're going to do is use Excel. All right, we're going to grab the mean minus the confidence.norm. All right, to find the lower limits for minus, for the upper limits plus confidence.norm, that will be your upper border. So you can find the real X values for your lower limits and your upper limits. Good. If you don't know your population standard deviation, but you know your sample standard deviation, we will use these sets of Excel formulas right here. Mean minus the confidence dot T. Because it's unknown, we're going to use a T value. If it's known, we just use a confidence dot norm function. All right. If it's unknown, it's confidence dot T. If it's known, it's confidence dot norm because we know it. All right. Good, 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 good. If we're dealing with proportion, how do we find the lower and upper limits? Do you see plus minus? So that means there's two formulas in one. We will use this formula right here. Last but not least, if we're trying to find the sample size, all right, and you know your population standard deviation, you see it inside of the equation right there, we will use this formula right here. But note to self, every time we calculate sample size, we must always round up to the next whole number. Some of you guys in your mind with math, when you round up, it must be zero point 0.5 or higher, right? But in business statistics, when we're dealing with sample size, if your sample size is zero point 0.01, you must round up to the next whole number. So let's say we had 12.01. The actual sample size that you need is 13. It must encapsulate all your decimal places. You must go up to the next whole number. So this is why you will see always, always round up to your next whole number. If you don't know your population standard deviation, all right, you will use this formula right here. Same concept, always, always round up. All right, so now with that said, we can actually get into the homework. Please open up your Excel for chapters 8, open up Cengage, and let's get to work. So let me grab Cengage. All right, let me grab this. I'll go into the Trello board. And don't forget, the Trello board link is in the description below. Please click on it. All right, in that Trello board link, you will see the PowerPoint that we just used today. It's right here. The Excel templates are right here. And the videos, just in case I go too fast or you missed a previous one or the next one to come, you can go right here to your Excel tips and trick videos. All right, but let's grab the Excel for chapters 8, please. All right, so I'm going to grab it right here, download it, open it. All right. All right, enable it. And please, if you would, save it. File, save as, browse. Hopefully you have your desktop available, your desktop folder for BUS352, and save it right in there. Outstanding. All right, now that you have your Excel open and saved, please go back into Cengage, go back into your classroom. You'll probably be around week 7, week 8, week 6, all right, whichever one it is. Find your chapters 8, click it, and open the assignment. All right, while that is loading, please, once again, do a dual screen. I'm going to drag this over to the right. I'm going to grab my Excel. All right, and I'm going to be ready to go. All right, if you would please start off with 8.03. 8.03. On chapters 8, we will have 3 questions that will show up on the exam. 8.03, 8.17, and 8-038. All right, so once we get those, we got to make sure that those are correct. So 8.03, 8.03, all right. Every time you see 2 boxes side by side, what this is saying is what is your lower limit and what is your upper limits. All right, so let's plug in what we got and let's see if we can actually get these answers. All right, so a simple random sample of 10 items. All right, so we got a sample of 10. Please plug it in. Once again, this is an exam question, so please make sure you get this right. Um, and a sample mean of 60. All right, with a standard deviation of 20. All right, what is your confidence level? 95%, but you must change it to a decimal value. Press enter. Everything up here should populate. All right, so can you calculate the lower limits? Grab this formula right here, copy it, paste it over yonder, double click on your mean, grab your mean's number, click it. Double click on your alpha, grab your alpha's number, the outer tips, the tips that we're not confident in, click it. Double click on your standard deviation, click it, and double click on your sample size and click it. All right. Once you have this, please copy this because instead of doing this over and over again, what we're going to do is change this minus to a plus. All right. So copy this, press enter. You'll have an answer. Double click in here and paste that same formula in there. And please change this minus to a plus sign. Press it. So for the lower limits, it is the minus, and the upper limits, it is the plus. Two formulas in one. Yeah, yeah, pretty cool. Press enter. All right, so plug these in, and they want one decimal place. Good. Check your work. So make sure you're on the right path. Outstanding. Then it goes on to say, all right, assume that the same sample mean was obtained from a sample of 90 items. All right. So before we had 10, now we have a sample size of 90. More data set. First was 10. Now we're dealing with 90. All right, good, good, good. And then it says, same 95%. Can we find the lower and upper limits? So grab the formula, double click paste, double click in your mean, same mean, double click in your alpha, same alpha, double click in your standard deviation, same standard deviation. But the only difference is your sample size has changed. Yeah, yeah. Once you have all of this, copy it. We're going to change this from a minus to a plus. Press enter. All right, double click, paste that in there, change the minus to a plus. All right, press enter, and you should be able to see. Please make sure that you set these to 2 decimal places. Check your work. All right, that's outstanding. And a larger sample size provides a what margin of error? All right, so on this, I believe it is, once again, just get these right. Actually, this is a smaller sample, yes, sorry. A larger sample size will provide a smaller margin of error. All right, make sure you get that right and type it in. On these exams, we're not asking you to memorize this stuff because even for me, if I didn't read it clearly, all right, I get this wrong. We don't want you guessing. We want it documented on your Excel template. So please make sure that you have the answers documented. All right, so this one will be an exam one. Please, let's go on to 8.11. All right, 8.11. So we're dealing with a t distribution. What that for the most part means is that we do not know our population standard deviation. So we're going to be using the t formula in order to calculate the probabilities. All right, so type in your degrees of freedom. First T1, plug it in. You will see to the right, all right, 2.120. Same concept. If it's going to the right, it is 1 minus. If it's going just to the left, it's just that function. If it's going in between, it's the largest one minus the smallest one. Same concept over and over again. So please put in all of your t values, please. And we all have the same numbers on this. So please mirror what I have. All right. All right, last one. All right, so once you have all of that in there, then we can calculate our probabilities at those t values. So copy, paste, t1, degrees of freedom, double click on it, click on the degrees of freedom, and it ends in true. Why? Because it's a range of numbers. Press enter. All right, gimme, gimme. Check your work. Outstanding. All right, so for 2, same kind of concept. Because it's less than, we just use the regular function, T2, gimme, gimme, degrees of freedom, gimme, gimme, press enter. Wonderful. Same concept over here. Grab the formula. All right. Grab this formula. Degrees of freedom. Check your work. All right, and these are my favorites on the bottom here, the in-betweens. All right, you must do the larger one first, minus the smaller one. So T6, your degrees of freedom, T5, and your degrees of freedom. And they end in true. All right, 95%. All right, and then the last one, same concept, between two values, large one, degrees of freedom, smaller one, and your degrees of freedom. Good work. Make sure you get those right. All right, let's move on to 8.17, please. This is on your exam, so we got to make sure that we get this one right. Yeah. All right, so let's see how we're gonna do this. Now that I'm thinking about this, I don't want to mess you guys up. I want you to find the most effective, efficient way of doing this. All right, you can do a descriptive statistic on this, or you can just do these formulas and get it right. What we're going to do is just do the formulas and get it right. So please go to 8.17. All right, and copy all of these values right here. We're going to keep this one very simple. Copy it, and we're going to paste it. All right, now that we've copied and pasted, all right, what we could have done is transpose it and put it over here. That's how we would teach it previously. But what we're going to do is try to simplify this where we just get these answers where you don't have to transpose and remember how to transpose and do all of that stuff. We're going to use the formula right here. So I'm going to maximize this. All right, so you guys can actually see this. And let's do the average of these numbers right here. I'm going to copy this, paste it to the right, double click on my range, and grab all of my numbers. Actually, 7.9. All right. Then I'm going to grab this, do the range. All right, do the count. The only problem with this is if they're actually using these empty cells as 0, then we cannot do it this way. All right, and then the confidence interval for this one from Cengage is 95%. So we'll type in the decimal value, 0.95. All right, so let me think about this really fast. I think it's not going to work simply because, yes, it's seeing these two values as 0. All right, so that's going to change my overall average. So what we will need to do on this one is to transpose this. The way we transpose it is a row at a time. So highlight your first row, copy it, Control C or Command C, go to the very top over here and paste it. Control V, no, unzip. All right. If you paste it and it goes across, that is not what we're looking for. We want it to be transposed. We wanted to change it from a row to a column. How do we do this? We right click. All right. For my Mac users, you can click on this arrow next to paste and look for transpose. Yeah, click it. That's how you transpose. We do a transpose of one row at a time. All right, so we got our first one. We're going to do the second row, copy it. How do you know it's copied? It's greenified. Then we're going to go right below and transpose it. Right click, transpose. Go to the third one, copy it, transpose it. Go to the fourth one, copy it, scroll down and right click and transpose it. All right. If you have one gray spot in the bottom, you know you did it right. All right. So now that we have that, I'm going to change my range from these guys right here, and I'm going to select all of my numbers. Press enter. All right. You see how it's slightly different? That was 7.91. Now it's 7.92. All right. So those two numbers were counting as zeros. All right. So on your standard deviation, same concept. We're going to start from the very top and go all the way down. Click and drag. All right. Press enter. Great. All right. It actually did do the same. It did a sample size of 50 as opposed to 52, which should be good. But let's see. I'm going to do this. Press enter. All right. So it's 50. Let me undo, because I want to see if we had the same. Yep. Okay. So what we could do is, yes, we can just do this and get away with it. It sees the blank spots and it doesn't count it towards our average. The more you know. All right. So let me redo. I'm going to leave it as this. We can actually put our data in here and just do the average, and it's going to do it right. So what we're going to do in this class, instead of transposing it, because some of y'all will be like, I won't remember how to do it, just put your data in, do the average, and it will work out right. Good, I'm glad to see that. All right, so what we're going to do is grab this formula, copy it, paste it for the lower limits. Once again, everything is put in that wrapped cell, so it's hard to see it. All right, so what I typically do is I click on that cell, single click on that cell, and unwrap it. Click on this cell, and oh, that one is not wrapped. All right, so we're going to double click Double click on mean, grab your mean's number. Double click on your alpha, grab your alpha's number. Double click on standard deviation and double click on your sample size, your count. All right. And then copy this and we're going to paste it down yonder. Oh, escape this. Let me do that one more again. Let me just give me a second. All right. Here it was. All right. I'm going to press enter and we're going to paste that again and change it to a plus. All right. So please make sure you set this up right. These are your lower limits and your upper limits. All right. So if I were to go back into Cengage, all right, 7.38. Let's see if this is right. 8.46. Check your work. Yes, indeed. All right. So that is one way of doing this. All right. The other way of doing this is to transpose it all over here and do the manual formulas, or you can do a descriptive statistic of this data right here. I'm just going to show you guys just in case you wanted to do it this way. But on the exam, you will have to do a descriptive statistic every single time. So all we would do is click on data. All right, you see I don't have my data analysis toolkit right here. I will just type in up here add-ins. All right, click it and make sure the analysis toolkit is set. Press OK. It pops up to the right under your data analysis tab. So data analysis. All right, find descriptive statistic, press OK. All right, we're going to start from up here, go all the way down. All right, I'm going to click this. All right, we don't have any labels, so we leave that unchecked. The output, we want to drop that right at this, I don't know, yellowish kind of box right here. We're going to select summary statistics and confidence level. Press OK. Bam. You see how it's 7.38 and 8.46. So we can do it either way. All right, here's the example of what the picture should look like for your descriptive statistics if you need it. Let's slide it over. All right, just get it right. But this is an exam question. The good news is we can just plug in our data, grab it from Cengage, paste it in here. And what we're going to do is use the right average. We're going to do the average of the range of this data right here. Yeah. Keep this simple as best as you can. All right, I'll slide this back over. Let's go to 8.23, please. 8.23. All right. Yep, 8.23. Find it. Perfect. It says how large a sample should be selected to provide 95% confidence interval. All right, good. So we got a 0.95. We got to change it to a decimal. All right, with a margin of error of 1, all right, and a standard deviation of 50. Please plug in your number. All right, so once we have that, here is our formula. We'll copy that, we'll paste that over yonder. Z, double click on your Z, grab your Z's number, 1.96. Double click on your standard deviation, grab your standard deviation's number, double click on E, grab your E's value, your margin of error, press enter. This is your number. But remember, when we're dealing with sample sizes, we must always round up to the next whole number. For you mathematicians, you can eyeball this and see that it's going to be 9604. All right. But please, let's make sure that we continue to use the formula, round up, double click on N. Here's your N. We want at 0 decimal places, basically a whole number. That will be your answer right there. Check your work. Outstanding. All right, let's move on to 8.29, please. 8.29, I don't remember where I saw that. All right, 8.29. So we got all this information right here. But for me, I just look for where my numbers are. I see my margin of error. all right, is 75. All right, I'm gonna look. I see my standard deviation is 4. All right, and my confidence interval is 0.95. All right, so now that I have all of that, I'm gonna grab this formula. We all have the same numbers on this, so just get it right. Double click on there, give me my Z, give me my standard deviation, give me my E. All right, and round up. All right. Um, is that one? Ah, okay, I see where this is gonna mess up. All right, so this says, sorry, I didn't read through all of this, but this is 75 seconds, right? And this one is dealing with minutes. So 75 seconds equals how many minutes? All right, so you can do something as simple as equals to, um, let me think about this. 75 divided by 60. All right, that's a much better number. We're going to round up, copy that, paste that, my n of that. All right, so it should be 40. Check my work. Yes. All right, so once again, if you're looking for the margin of error, all I did was 75 seconds divided by 60, 60 seconds in a minute. All right, so that's how I came up with that 1.25. All right, good, good, good. Now let's look at this margin of error, a margin of error of 1 minute. All right, so this should be 1. Here's my new formula. Copy, paste, give me my Z. Give me my standard deviation. Give me my E. Press enter. All right. And you use the round up formula. Round up to the next whole number. That should be 62. Check your work. Make sure you're good. Yes, indeed. All right. 3 more to go. Let's go to 8.33, please. Yeah. What's that down here? Yes, good. All right, these you're dealing with proportions. All right. So my proportion is 0.35. Once again, we all have the same numbers. My E is the margin of error, 0.05, and my confidence interval is 0.95. All right. Here's your formula for P. For this guy, for my sample size, here's my Z. Gimme, gimme. Here's my P. Gimme. There's my P, and here's my E. Make sure that you select these right points, press enter, and please make sure that you use the round up function. All right, so you should be able to type in 350. You must always, always round up. Yep, yep, yep. All right, 2 more to go. Let's go to 8.038. Perfect. In developing an interval estimation of population mean, if the population standard deviation is unknown, which one do you use? When it's unknown, we use the t-distribution. Yeah, yeah. So make sure you click it. Make sure you ratify it. Hopefully it allows me to do it. Outstanding. This new computer is working really well. All right. Make sure that your answer is checked. This one is an exam question, so please make sure you get it right. All right. 1 more to go. 8.57, please. All right. Plug in your numbers as you see them. So I see a percentage of 47.47. Good. My sample size of 450. I'm just eyeballing this. And my confidence level, 0.95. All right, good. How do I find my lower limits? Here's my formula. I'm going to copy, paste, give me my P, give me my Z, A. All right, the P, the P. All right. And because it's lower and upper limits, please copy it and change it to a plus. Press enter, double click and paste it and change it to a plus. All right. So that will be your lower limits. That will be your upper limits. Check your work just to make sure. Yes, indeed. All right. This one, your confidence level is changing. All right. It is changing to 99%. So you could put in here 0.99 and then go through that formula again and make sure that you get it right. But for why? Could you not have changed this confidence level to 0.99 and get your answers? All right. So I'm going to put these two answers down here, 0.42 and then 0.52. That's my original answers. All right. And this is at 0.95. Yeah, yeah. And then when I change this to 0.99, when I press enter, it is automatically going to update those numbers. I don't have to do all that work again. All right. Find the most effective, efficient way of doing business. All right. So I'm going to press enter. There's my answer. So let's test it out to see if it works. Check your work. Outstanding. Right here, just get the right answer. Which one is it? Is it smaller or larger? Get it right. So hopefully you can see that we can find out the borders of the information that we're looking for at the lower limit and at the upper limit. Is the stuff within your confidence interval? Yes or no? If it's not within the confidence interval, you can basically provide recommendations on how to get within the borders. All right. But if it's inside of the borders, then you're confident in it and you can tell others, hey, this data is good. Make sure you understand confidence interval. That's all I got for you. Have a great day. Thanks for hanging.